All right. Today we're going to start with Oliver Twist, chapter 4, Oliver in London. So let's see what happens. First of all, the settings. We know that Oliver is in London. He's in Fagin's hideout. He's been taken there by the Artful Dodger, that is Jack Dawkins. And who are the important characters that we are introduced to in this chapter? Fagin. He was this old man with a really ugly face. He had red hair and he wore a dirty old coat. In Fagin's hideout, we also see that there are 4 or 5 other boys, and Oliver notices that they are of the same age as the Artful Dodger, but that they sat smoking and drinking like middle-aged men. Charlie Bates is one of the boys. There are also 2 young ladies who come to visit the boys and Fagin. There's an old gentleman who gets robbed, and there's a policeman, and there are other citizens. So, what are the most important things that happen in this chapter? Of course, we see that the Artful Dodger, Jack Dawkins, he's taken Oliver to Fagin's hideout, and the chapter tells us that the place where Fagin's hideout was an extremely dirty place, sordid. Oliver had never seen anything as dirty and filthy and smelly as that place. Now, he wanted to run away, but then um, Jack Dawkins, he just pushes him inside Fagin's house. He's introduced to Fagin. Fagin is really pleased to see Oliver. Oliver eats and he goes to sleep. The next day, um, when Oliver wakes up late in the morning, Fagin thinks that he's still sleeping. And Fagin takes out this box from beneath the floor and he takes out all the contents of the box. There were watches with jewels in them. And Oliver sees Fagin, you know, pruning over these jewels of his, over these watches. And he was saying things like, um, he was praising the people who did not give out his name to the police and that they were dead men and dead men wouldn't betray him. So he definitely had companions who were now dead and did not betray Fagin for something. We'll learn that later on in the play. Then after breakfast one day, Oliver saw that Fagin and the boys, they played a very strange game. So Fagin would stand in the middle of the room and he would just dress up like an old gentleman with a walking stick. He would walk to and fro the room, and the boys would try and take out his pocket watch, his pocket handkerchief, and they would try and take them out without Fagin knowing it. And if Fagin would feel something, the whole game would begin again. He was actually training the boys to steal, but Oliver, he did not realize that. In the meantime, Fagin, he teaches Oliver how to remove the marks out of handkerchiefs. And Oliver, however, did not understand anything, but he did it anyway. Then finally, one morning, Oliver, he got to go with the other boys to work. That's what Oliver thought, that they were going to work, but they were actually going to steal from other people. They were pickpockets. And then at a bookstore, they see this old gentleman, and the Artful Dodger, he plans to rob him. He was a wealthy looking man, and he was reading this book. He was not really attentive, and the Artful Dodger thought that he was the most suitable person to rob. And rob him they did. They took out his handkerchief, and Charlie Bates and the Artful Dodger, they ran around the street. But Oliver, at that moment, he realized what these boys were doing. He realized that they were stealing, and he suddenly understood the entire mystery of the strange game they had been playing at Fagin's hideout. Oliver was so shocked. He remained frozen. And then he was so confused and frightened, after a while, he started running. And the old gentleman, at that moment, he realized that his handkerchief was missing. He turned around, he saw Oliver running, and he thought that Oliver was the thief. So he said, "Stop, thief!" And everyone gets into the chase to catch Oliver. Finally, Oliver is caught. He's exhausted and he's caught. And there's this one young man who hits Oliver on the mouth, and Oliver falls down to the ground. And the old gentleman and there's a policeman who come, and the old gentleman doesn't want Oliver to be hurt. And the policeman, Oliver, and the old gentleman, they walk towards the police station. So that's where the chapter ends, and we'll read further in chapter 5. I have not added anything to the conflict. I think it still remains the same, poverty. And I think I could have added one more thing. I could have added crime. I can see that some of you who sent me your story maps, I can see more things added to the conflict. I'm really happy to see that, because you could see it from a very different perspective than me. So than I do. So you can add things on your own. Absolutely. It's so interesting to see how you write your story map. All right, that's all for now. And we'll see each other when we do chapter 5. See you.